W5, a loved one's body donated to science.
I felt I made the right decision.
A noble cause treated with dignity.
They're making a difference for everyone to try to have a better, healthier life.
But for some families, the start of a nightmare.
He was dismembered and sold in an illegal way.
Sandy Ronaldo investigates the shadowy world of body brokers.
Is there a lot of money to be made from the sale of body parts?
It's a multi-million-dollar business.
Black market sellers working in nightmarish conditions.
It was a place that very few people could wrap their minds around.
The dishonest dealers trafficking in body parts that leaves grieving families seeking answers.
Everything I believed and thought I did right, I did wrong.
And a troubled childhood in a dangerous city.
One of our friends was shot and killed.
Marked by tragedy and loss.
Who wants to tell their kid that their parent is dead?
But when a gift for the game was revealed on the court.
Basketball was the thing to get me out of the environment that I was in.
A mentor pushed him to succeed.
I hated him. I hated him from the day I met him.
Peter Ackman looks at the hard-won career of a basketball star.
People underestimate you when they meet you?
Yeah, probably.
Who took his hits, but never stopped.
If they don't want me, I'll go find somebody that does.
And proved them all wrong.
We always knew this was gonna happen.
Here is Kevin Newman.
Hello, and thanks for joining us. It is among the most altruistic things you can do when someone you care about passes away. Donate their body to science. Now, in Canada, the donation programs are administered by the government, and they help anatomy students and researchers improve the lives of the living. But W5 has uncovered a dark corner of the body business, where body parts are sold for profit and brought into Canada from the United States. Sandy Ronaldo reports on what our year-long investigation has uncovered. And while we've taken great care to obscure some of the images, the subject matter here may be disturbing to some of you.
Healthcare Administrator Cara Rivera had spent years working with student doctors when her father, Louis Gully, was admitted to hospital in 2011.
I worked at a teaching hospital facility, so I was around student doctors and stuff, so that always made me feel like, if they could learn better, or if they could do more.
When Louis died of heart failure, Cara thought it was important to donate his body to science.
And you were comfortable with your decision? You felt you had made the right decision for your dad?
I felt I made the right decision, and I thought I made the right decision for the profession I'm in.
A company called Biological Resource Center of Illinois had distributed pamphlets at the Chicago area hospice where her father spent his last days. Cara called them with several questions for the case manager about what would happen to his body.
She specifically said ortho doctors to come in and, do devices. And then also we may have dental students come in and practice. And I specifically, on the phone with her, asked her, so you're gonna do those things, but his body will return, 100% cremated. And she said yes.
Did they say they would dissect his body?
They did not say, because I asked specifically.
His body would be kept?
It would be kept whole and cremated and whole and returned to me.
Cara received a certificate of cremation dated 9 days after she made the donation. Within 2 months, an urn with what she was told were her father's ashes arrived with this thank you letter, specifying how Louis's remains had been used. For 7 years, Cara kept the urn at home. Then, in February 2018, her world was turned upside down. She received a letter from the U.S. government.
It said something right under there, my dad's name, and that's what caught my eye. Why my dad's passed away? So then I read further, and I'm like, Special Victims Unit,
and
or,
the U.S. Department of Justice letterhead that must have
scared.
Jumped out at you.
Like, what is this?
Cara's father, Louis, was listed as a victim in a U.S. government fraud case. She called the FBI, who said that her father's remains were not in the treasured urn she kept at home. His remains had somehow ended up in this Detroit warehouse.
They had evidence to lead them to believe that he was dismembered and maybe even sold in an illegal way parts of his body.
Shocking news. And what's more, the FBI also couldn't tell her whose remains she had in her possession. Kara was overwhelmed.
I probably hadn't dealt with all the old grief because everything happened so fast, and now everything I believed and thought I did right, I did wrong. And I just started thinking, my dad's not at peace. And he's not at peace because of me. I'm trying to like block that out, and I'm already getting sad. His birthday's coming up, and I don't think he's at peace. I just don't.
Kara discovered the accused in the case was a man named Arthur Rathburn and his Detroit company, International Biological Inc. She had no idea who he was or why he had her father's remains.
Now, Arthur Rathburn was part of a network of non-transplant tissue banks or body brokers. These for-profit businesses solicit body donations from the elderly or sick and then sell the cadavers to universities, researchers, or private companies. The sale of body parts is legal in the United States. As for Rathburn, he would purchase cadavers from larger private tissue banks like the one Kara donated her father's remains to. He would then dismember them here at this now abandoned Detroit warehouse and sell or lease the parts to clients in the US, Israel, and Canada. Yes, Canada.
W5 has learned that on at least 5 occasions, Rathburn or his associates brought cadavers into Canada. In most provinces, it is illegal to buy or sell human remains for profit. One incident in 2013 involving the Institute for Dental Excellence in Toronto came to the attention of Ontario's Chief Coroner, Dr. Dirk Heyer.
We were notified of 14 cephalic specimens, which are heads from deceased persons, that were imported into Ontario for the purpose of education, dental education.
And what was the source?
They were from a number of non-transplant tissue banks that are present in the States, and they had all been donated with clear, proper process and consent, but then had been sold to somebody else and then brought to Canada.
Something bothers you about this?
Oh, it bothered me that there was not proper documentation. So entry into Canada was done illegally.
Those 14 heads belonged to Arthur Rathburn's company. They were left with that Toronto client without any instruction for how to store them. These disturbing images are the result of that transaction. When the specimens began to decompose, Rathburn instructed the client to douse the heads in mouthwash. When that didn't work, they called the chief coroner, whose office seized and cremated the remains. How Rathburn specimens were allowed across the border is the question.
Arthur asked me to help him, that he had a meeting in Toronto and one in Montreal.
This man, who we are calling Ward, knows firsthand how Arthur Rathburn got body parts into Canada. Over a 20-year period, Ward was a driver for Rathburn and would help unload and set up cargo for clients. We're concealing Ward's identity because he may have unwittingly participated in Rathburn's crimes.
When did you first go to Canada, and did you go alone or with Arthur Rathburn?
I believe it was 2011. I met him in Detroit, and then we loaded up the equipment and departed into Canada.
And what was the cargo that you took across the border?
I believe it was primarily heads.
Heads, for what purpose?
2 workshops. One, I believe, was a sinus surgery workshop in Montreal, and the other, I don't even know what Arthur was doing in Toronto.
Arthur Rathburn's body brokerage sourced those bodies from across the United States. According to law enforcement, he made more than $13 million before he was raided by the FBI in 2013. 5 years later, Rathburn was convicted of wire fraud for lying to clients. Not only had he bought healthy donated specimens, Rathburn also sold body parts with infectious diseases at discounted rates and passed them off as healthy. For that, Rathburn was sentenced to 9 years in prison.
Were you suspicious at any point about Arthur Rathburn?
He shared some of his future plans. I said, you know, it's not so much to my liking. I didn't enjoy any parts of the working at his procurement facility.
Why not? What did he do that made you hesitant to keep working with him?
He had specific orders for parts, limbs, spines, heads, necks, and it was a grisly process of actually taking the cadavers and then procuring those individual components, parts.
According to Ward, who quit before Rathburn was arrested, the Detroit warehouse and Rathburn's methods were unlike anything he had ever seen.
It was a place that very few people could wrap their minds around. You walk in there and you open the giant freezer door, and there are human bodies in bags on various shelving units, and you go, wow, this is, it's like something you'd see in a horror movie.
An unscrupulous body broker.
And did you see right through him when you first met him?
No, I, like everybody, was duped.
Turns illegal sales into a lucrative industry.
Some were just being stored in a big cooler in a warehouse.
When W5 continues.
Body broker Arthur Rathburn's Detroit warehouse has been described as something out of a horror movie. We've blurred the images inside to preserve the dignity of those whose bodies were donated to science, but then misused by Rathburn. Across the U.S., here in Arizona, a very different-looking warehouse.
People donate their bodies for the benefit of science, either through disease research or medical education.
Research for Life Arizona is a for-profit non-transplant tissue bank.
So this will be where donors arrive.
Garland Shreves is CEO.
Is that a donor arriving right now?
Yes. This is how all donors arrive to this facility in a refrigerated vehicle. They'll be in body bags, kept cool.
What are these individuals doing right now?
These guys are going to receive the donors, and they're going to help their teammates take care of it.
It's hard to wrap my head around the fact that those are dead people who...
Those are awesome dead people if you want to know the truth. You want to know why? Because they're making a difference for everyone to try to have a better, healthier life because they are donors.
Research for Life's clients, medical schools, and research labs can purchase whole cadavers, but the more common requests are for individual parts, heads, arms, or spines, all for specific kinds of medical research and education. This industry is perfectly legal in the U.S. This lab is where cadavers are dismembered in a process called procurement. The images are so graphic that we can't show viewers. But a warning, what you are about to see does feature human remains and may be hard to watch.
What's going on right now behind you?
Right now behind you, technicians, based on the review of the entire case, was able to determine how the donor was going to be procured. And so today, they are procuring parts from the body for various projects.
Research for Life charges institutions a fee for its services, but donor families are not paid. Unlike in Canada, this industry is legal in the U.S. Shreves gave W5 unique access to his facility for one reason: transparency.
Now, unfortunately, there have been some bad actors and bad players in the U.S. who've engaged in tissue banking that probably shouldn't have and didn't come with the same level of commitment that we do every day to this job.
Bad actors like Arthur Rathburn, the Detroit body parts broker convicted of wire fraud for passing off diseased cadavers as healthy. Shreves met Arthur Rathburn on several occasions.
He made you feel very comfortable in his presence. He felt very knowledgeable. He represented that he was a doctor. And in fact, only to come to find out that none of that was true. It was all a fraud.
And did you see right through him when you first met him?
No.
No.
No, I, like everybody, was duped.
Arthur Rathburn continued operating for years while the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and later the FBI investigated his movements around the U.S. and into Canada.
So the concern at the U.S. end was?
That he was handling and shipping human remains to Canada that were not properly screened, and that he was lying to customs and federal agents regarding the handling and processing.
CDC started noticing the discrepancies
This whistleblower has direct knowledge of those U.S. investigations.
How did you become aware that Arthur Rathburn was doing business in Canada?
The frequency of land border crossings for Canada.
And do you know where he was shipping his body parts to Canada?
He primarily was in Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver.
We are protecting the identity of this whistleblower because of direct involvement in the Rathburn investigation and the confidential information being revealed.
And do you know who his clients were?
We know some of the clients.
W5 has obtained documents, invoices, and inventory lists from Rathburn to at least 2 Canadian clients, Montreal dental surgeons Dr. Aaron Gonshore and Dr. Ellie Raviv.
With the Ravives, he generally used heads. They did dental implants, maxillary surgery.
So they were using them, as far as we know, to offer courses to dentists.
Correct.
According to the whistleblower, Arthur Rathburn sent specimens to Dr. Ellie Raviv.
And how did Rathburn manage to get specimens across the border undetected?
CBSA saw the bodies, but there was a very long period of time where it wasn't questioned.
They saw the heads.
They saw the heads.
And why wouldn't they have questioned it?
We don't know that. We think because he was presenting himself as something that he was not.
Are they still bringing body parts into the country?
We believe so.
Where are they getting these specimens?
Other agencies in the United States that do body donation that are body brokers.
W5 found this website advertising cadaver courses given by Dr. Ellie Raviv at his Montreal dental office. The cost, $3,000 per student. W5 called Dr. Raviv's office posing as a potential client for the courses advertised online. His wife, fellow dentist Millie Raviv, answered the phone.
Do we watch the instructor operate?
You actually work.
It's full body or it's the head?
It's a head.
Are they from donors or how does that even work?
I cannot disclose anymore. You have everything on the website.
On the website.
We asked Dr. Ellie Raviv to speak to us on camera about transactions with Arthur Rathburn. In this email, Dr. Raviv admitted using cadaver specimens in dental courses, but insisted he had only obtained specimens from Rathburn for 2 courses in 2010 and 2013. And, quote, these specimens were brought into Canada in a legal fashion for teaching purposes. He also agreed to speak to us by phone.
You did have dealings with Arthur Rathburn.
No, I didn't deal with him directly. And I can tell you that as far as the cadaver heads, they were always, at all time under his supervision. He took care of all the aspects, customs and Ministry of Health, and handling, shipping, door to door.
You do offer courses in which there are heads that are brought into your facility for dental students and other dental professionals to work on, correct?
Correct.
And what is the source? Where do you get these specimens from?
There are different companies that are dealing with these, and I think you can find them that are serious companies that are dealing with specimens, not only for dental use, but also for medicine and research and teaching.
W5 also requested to speak to the other dentist named in Rathburn's invoices and letters, Dr. Aaron Gonshore. He responded through his lawyer. Dr. Gonshore used the services of International Biological Inc. a total of 2 or 3 times in Canada. These parts were never imported into Canada by Dr. Gonshore, but were brought here by IBI for seminars to teach doctors and dentists. And after the teaching session, IBI personnel returned to the United States with the cadaver parts, which he thought were brought into Canada legally for 2 days at a time and were not under his care and control. This whistleblower maintains that even with Rathburn in prison, Canadian customers are still using American cadavers.
This is an ongoing situation. This did not stop with Rathburn. There are courses going on in Montreal, Toronto, in Vancouver.
This bothers you a lot.
It does. It does. It should. It should bother everyone.
The fact that the body trade is still going on raises the question, what are authorities in Canada doing about this? Both the Canada Border Services Agency and the Public Health Agency of Canada declined W5's request for an interview. So we filed an Access to Information request. It revealed dozens of emails between officials about Rathbun's shipments to Canada. On at least one occasion, after some back and forth, his specimens were let into the country. Since Arthur Rathbun's arrest, dozens of American families have joined lawsuits. Lawyer Khalid Hassan represents Cara Rivera, whose father Lewis's body ended up in Rathbun's Detroit warehouse.
The fraud that was perpetuated on these families and the pretenses induced them to donate these bodies in order for these companies to profit off the sale of body parts.
And is there a lot of money to be made from the sale of body parts?
Quite a lot. It's a multi-million-dollar business.
According to lawyers, this multi-million-dollar scheme also involved wholesalers and middlemen.
We are going after the companies that our clients dealt with directly, which ultimately acted as a fence for Arthur Rathbun.
The end use for some cadavers went far beyond medical research.
If not going to research, where were they going?
Some are going to medical conventions as displays. Some are just being stored in a big cooler in a warehouse until, they could sell it or do whatever they wanted to do with it.
Over and above medical research?
Yes, using a human body for a bomb test or a car crash test is in no way related to medical research and science and furthering medical research and science.
And like Cara Rivera, some of the plaintiffs were given urns with what was supposed to be their loved ones' ashes.
We're able to find invoices that post-date the cremation. So if the families are told that the whole body of their loved one is in an urn that was cremated, how is their head, torso, arm, and leg being sold 2 months later?
For Cara, prison isn't enough for unscrupulous body brokers. No one even knows where all of her father's body parts are.
When I first found out, I didn't contact an attorney or do anything because I didn't want to relive the day. I knew I was going to have to go back. I knew I was going to have to tell what happened over and over.
It took her months to decide to join a lawsuit, but she is now resolute.
Why do you want to go through this?
I just want to feel like we won and they lost in some way.
You want justice?
Yes, I want justice.
And you want justice for your father?
Absolutely, because I don't feel like he's at peace. And if we are victorious, I think that's going to help me.
Well, W5 approached Arthur Rathbun for a prison interview, but after an exchange of letters, he stopped responding. He has filed an appeal of his conviction.